Well, the gender surrender agenda has become a well-oiled machine as it plows through major institutions in America. Since it was really difficult to pick just one story to discuss this week, we're going to look at these 5 jaw-dropping headlines. First, let's start in Seattle, where public schools offer free sex change services to students as young as 13, and there's more, without telling parents. In Michigan, Democrats passed a new bill that could make using wrong pronouns a felony, resulting in prison time or a fine of $10,000. The NIH has granted $3.3 million for Boston Children's Hospital to promote gender transitions to out-of-state minors. In Texas, a biology professor claims he was fired for teaching sex is determined by chromosomes X and Y. And finally, a federal judge in Wisconsin orders the school district there to let trans-identifying student use the girls' restroom. And the hits just keep on coming. I'm David Fiorazzo, and this is Christ and Culture. Okay, so let's start out on the West Coast, where the largest government school district in Washington is referring children to a few so-called health and wellness centers to receive free, quote, gender-affirming care. What could go wrong? If you're a middle schooler, a high schooler, Seattle Public Schools, you can get hormone-blocking medications as well as referrals for sex change surgeries, and your parents don't need to know. Washington does not require parental consent for various treatments on children, including for STDs and everything that falls under gender-affirming care. Last year, the Post-Millennial revealed that the district saw an astounding 853% increase in students identifying as non-binary. That's in just 3 years. Now let's go over to Michigan, where HB 4474 was passed, and according to reports, it could make it a felony to intimidate someone. How? By intentionally using the wrong gender pronouns or causing them to feel threatened by words. I wish I was making this up. The bill specifically targets, quote, disrespectful acts such as intentional misgendering, end quote. Offenders are guilty of a felony punishable by imprisonment for not more than 5 years or by a fine of not more than $10,000. The bill specifically addresses sexual orientation and gender identity or expression as protected classes. The radical legislation is clearly unconstitutional, but when has that ever stopped the left? If the Michigan Senate approves the bill, Governor Gretchen Whitmer will likely sign it. Elections have consequences. Next, the NIH, the National Institute of Health, under the Biden administration, has given over $14 million of taxpayer funds for 8 project grants, specifically focusing on people who identify as transgender. Nearly $7 million of that is geared specifically for minors. Last year, Boston Children's Hospital was exposed in a scandal when the public found out they were pushing and performing gender transition, end quote, surgeries on children as young as 13. The hospital raked in a $3.3 million grant from the NIH to build a pro-transgender website and a training program targeting children in other states. The grant actually began in September of 2021 and will end August 31 of this year. Let's go down to Texas, where a biology professor for the past 20 years says his lessons on chromosomes, human biology, and sex led to his dismissal. Dr. Johnson Varkey taught the same lessons for 20 years, facts about the human reproductive system, and he never had any issues until he received a notice of dismissal. Varkey inquired about any complaints, but HR at St. Philip's College in San Antonio, Texas, didn't respond. Instead, he received a letter of termination and was told some of the complaints were offensive to the homosexuals and transgenders. First Liberty is handling his case, and they insist the professor's speech is not only backed by science and his religious beliefs, but is protected under the First Amendment. We'll see how that case goes. We were once a healthy society in which free speech was protected. People could voice their opinions. They could disagree with government. And we could have respectful debates of ideas, but not anymore. Finally, let's go to Wisconsin. A leftist judge ruled in a Milwaukee area school district they'll be forced to allow male students to use the girls' restroom and locker room if they identify as female. The Mukwonago area school district can no longer enforce its recent policy that would have protected young girls and banned students from using bathrooms of the opposite sex. The mother of an 11-year-old boy who identifies as a girl filed the lawsuit on behalf of her son, and one judge's decision now blocks the entire district from keeping him out of the girls' bathroom. So gender confusion has become a massive issue for concerned parents, as we've seen outrage, disgust, more families either removing their children from public schools or weighing in on bathroom policies at public school board meetings. Back in March, by the way, I referred to this as the most programmed generation in history. Remember, as of last year, approximately 300,000 minors between 13 and 17 years old identified as transgender. This is tragic. So the trans train has become an unstoppable locomotive, and it's steaming through our culture. Two of its primary purposes are population control and the subjugation of America. Think about it. And remember, the issue is never the issue. The issue is the revolution. God bless you, and keep speaking the truth about things that matter.